Hello and welcome to this week's review of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, the anime, and this week I'm reviewing the episode titled A Rational Man, and we kick off this review, as we always do with these reviews, by talking about the positives and the headline positives. All the big things I'm discussing over the course of this review. I like seeing Koichi training his new power, I enjoyed seeing the humour throughout this episode, and I like seeing the display of the Delivery Man's power towards the end of this episode. Hey, if some of these points of praise seem familiar, hey, this series is nothing if not consistent, and I only just realised to me as I was doing the intro, I say the word review a lot in the first 10 to 20 seconds of these reviews, so yeah, I might have just made that word lose all meaning, but nonetheless, we'll continue on. And if you like the video, if you want more stuff from me to do with My Hero Academia and related subject matters, be sure to like, subscribe, do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. I know you hear this a lot from people on YouTube. I don't like doing it, but we all know what YouTube's like at the best of times, but hey, we'll talk about happy things right now. Let's actually talk about this episode, and I did enjoy it for what it is, though I will admit that it does feel a lot more lightweight and disposable, certainly relative to how this episode and this collection of episodes felt in the manga, but hey, that's a whole other discussion for a whole other time. And hey, you know what? Something that really stuck out to me this week is bloody hell, Vigilantes releases earlier in the day than I thought. I always thought it released around 5 o'clock, but it doesn't. It releases at about 1, so this is why you're getting this week's review a little bit early, and maybe if I can pull my finger out, these reviews will be going up earlier in the day from this point on. But nonetheless, let's actually talk about the episode itself. And like I say, this is a perfectly enjoyable episode, even if it does feel a little bit lightweight for me in a way that I wasn't really expecting. I mean, it's still a good episode, and it does feel like it fits in, and I think that in the grand scheme of things, this isn't going to feel like as much of a filler episode as some people might sit back and call it, for reasons which will become clear as this season develops. But nonetheless, this is the episode where Crawler and Eraserhead team up for the first time, and I use the word team up loosely because it's more Eraserhead tries to defeat the villain, the Recycle Hoppers try to help, and Crawler spends most of his time going around going, HELP! As he ends up getting in way over his head consistently throughout the episode. But hey, I like that because it makes the character a lot more endearing. I will admit, however, that it does get a little bit grating that our hero is maybe not as proactive as he should be, but that might well be a discussion for the end of season review. But nonetheless, it still has a great energy and a spirit to it, which I can't fault. It helps to define itself very differently from the main series. Koichi keeps finding himself getting in over his head and making the best of what little that he has. This is an episode that kicks off with him trying to use this new element of his power in a more effective way. He has the cardboard box and he has all the cans of I can't believe it's not Sprite lined up, and he's trying to blast them off there, and that is an element of the show that I wish that we saw more of, this attempt to train and develop himself as a hero, as a vigilante, with what little he has access to. In the main series, our heroes go to one of the most prestigious hero high schools in the world, one that has seemingly infinite resources and access to the best and most cutting-edge equipment here, there, and everywhere. If you need it, there's probably someone that can get it for you, or get you something that's just as good in next to no time, and here that isn't the case. Crawler is just a guy. He's just a university student, a first-year university student who's doing this vigilante stuff almost as a hobby, and when it comes to training himself and building himself up, he has to use what's ever available to him. I'm always drawn to what we get towards the start of this series, and also the manga as well, where Knuckle does to suggest to him to use like motorcycle protective gear so that as he's sliding about he'll do less damage to himself, and here we get another element of that, of, right, he needs to train his power, he needs to figure out how to make this work. He doesn't have access to the multi-billion-dollar facilities that UA has, but he has some cans and he has some cardboard boxes, and he's going to try and use it as best as he can do within the confines of the law, which granted he didn't think about because, well, I suppose that this is something he was just hoping that he'd get away with, and maybe he would have done. Maybe he would have done, because he is just on this roof doing it, but like Popstep says, it's the kind of thing that you will get in trouble for if you don't have a proper license for it, which is understandable. Though I will admit that the whole nature of licensing, as far as the use of quotes goes in this world, it feels a little bit nebulous. It feels a little bit too ill-defined. Like, he's able to use his quirk to get around, like we see a couple episodes ago, where he's like giving Popstep a ride and carrying the luggage behind him, but other times apparently he can't do that, and he's just using his quirk in this particular instance to knock a bunch of cans over. It's not like in that instance he's using it to fight crime or anything, so it's not as though he's doing anything necessarily bad, but hey, whatever, it's an element of the world, it's a minor bit of world building that I think does work. It gives us a better insight to certain aspects of this world, even if again it feels a little bit nebulous. Again, I do wish that we had more scenes like this of Crawler just training and trying to figure out how to use his quirk in the most effective way. The whole thing of him just discovering aspects of his quirk in the way that we've seen thus far in the manga and the anime, certainly by this point in the series, it does feel like, okay, here's a new aspect of your power, and here's an action sequence to use it. Here's a new aspect of your power, and here's an action sequence to use it. And he learns on the battlefield, which is okay, I suppose, and okay in the context of shonen anime, because let's face it, it's the kind of thing we end up seeing in other series, but at the same time, the fact that there isn't this thing of, okay, I need to learn how to use this suction cup thing better, so I'm going to try and climb up the side of a wall, or climb up the side of a building, or he's going to go to the gym and try and go on the big climbing wall that some places have, and, oh, he's not going to climb onto the climby bits, he's going to try and use his quirk, and that kind of stuff isn't there, and I wish that there was, because I think it's an element of this series it needs to have to better differentiate itself, not just from My Hero Academia, from all the superhero pieces of fiction, but hey, can only review what's in front of you, and what it does in this moment is fun. I do wish, again, it went on a little bit longer, that there was more to this, but it works for what it is, and it gives us a good insight into how the power is coming along, even if it does end up setting into a learning on the battlefield thing later on, which I'm not against, because at the end of the day, that action sequence is still fun. It takes up most of the episode, but it is a great bit of fun. The episode itself has this great sense of humour throughout. It's consistent with everything we've had thus far with Vigilantes. It's all very character developed, it's all rather character focused, I should say, and it helps to sell those characters' personality well as gives us better insights into who they are behind the scenes almost. I do like the sequence we get in the episode where they're selling the hair lotion stuff to the old guy, and they're just in this dark, dingy place. Well, it's really meant for animals, but you're just buying this because what you use it for is nothing to do with us, and that's a little bit of fun. And he's got these very faint little bits of hair on. He said, wow, it's working. Oh, I gotta get this stuff. That's fun. The whole thing of Crawler getting chased around by the big squidtopus monster is fun. Again, I don't know why I keep saying again as a clutch word, but anyway, there is that moment towards the end of last season where Crawler gets chased around and you have the fake X-Men guys and he says, help! And they're like, no. I wish there was a moment like that in this, but still, it's fun. It has an element and a sparkiness to it which really helps to sell this series and its tone and just how wild and weird and crazy that this can just end up developing, that you got the two, again, like we had last week, the recycle hopper guys becoming Kamen Rider knockoff guys, and it all descends into this big fight between the squid guy and the mantis monster, who himself just wanted to have a cup of tea and put his feet up. That poor man. His life's been ruined and he just has a little bit of a time to himself and it just keeps going wrong and now he's homeless. All the humour in this episode, I think, works brilliantly well. There is an element of it that I think hinders it to a degree, but that's something we'll discuss shortly. But this is an episode which has a great energy to it, and as I've mentioned earlier in this review, there is a part of me that is worried that this might be seen as filler, at least in the context of the wider series, or at least, I should say, in the context of all the people reviewing this that aren't familiar with the manga. And I can understand that, because it, at the moment, doesn't feel like it's doing much. But even not knowing what I know about things that come later, this is still an episode that has a lot going for it. It is an episode that is building up these connections between different characters, building up these connections between our lead character, Crawler, and Eraserhead in a way which is designed to make it feel as though Eraserhead's presence in this series is less of a series of extended cameos and more of an attempt of bringing his character into this, showing his side of hero work and building out his character in the longer run. Whether or not they do that within this season, I don't know. Depends how what we saw in the trailer comes to pass or not in the way that I think it might do. But nonetheless, it's a matter of making sure that we have these connections, as well as giving a way of getting connections between the Recycle Hoppers and their friend that's Samantha's with Crawler. This is an episode that is primarily about bringing these worlds together so that Crawler can get these insights into how all of this works, as well as bringing these characters into the main narrative, potentially. We'll see where it all ends up going, but it does feel like there is an intent here to bring these worlds together in a way that, as I say, it makes the stuff with Eraserhead feel less like a series of cameos or I remember this guy, and more like a genuine attempt to build out this world and to show aspects of it that aren't and weren't really necessarily done within the main series. That this is a broader attempt to make all these elements of this world connect together, and to show situations where heroes and vigilantes and members of the public might end up having to work together to defeat some of these villains. And you have the moment where the Recycle Hoppers are effectively trying to go out to bat for Crawler by saying, oh, well, you know, he was just helping out, he just happened to be here. So, well, you should really be saying thank you for your help, citizen, and, you know, we're just helping as well. Like this is all self-defense. I mean, this is medicinal trigger, this isn't the illegal stuff, this is all legal and above board. Isn't that right? Eraserhead, oh buddy, oh pal, oh do you want another coffee? I'll get you a coffee. Like that stuff works well. It's all about connecting these characters together for stuff that may or may not come in the future. Some of that stuff I genuinely don't know about and I'm being speculative of, but nonetheless, this is about building those links and making sure that these characters have a reason to interact with each other beyond just, well, it would be neat to have Eraserhead in this series, which I can appreciate. This is an episode that I think works well in establishing stuff for later on. If that was to be a criticism, maybe not a negative, is it does feel like this is an episode that is about establishing stuff for later on. And it does it well. One of the big takeaways in the episode, I suppose, is the scene that we get with the delivery man towards the end of this episode. And I think that it's a little bit more brutal in the manga, but nonetheless, I understand why it's there. There is a part of me that does worry that this is just the anime manga thing of we need the yardstick. We need to show just how big of a bad guy our bad guy is and just how powerful he is because he's got this super duper super powered watch out hero because they're on the prowl. But on the other side of it, it does work because it helps to illustrate that there is still this massive gap between himself and Crawler. That just because Crawler can figure out how to use his power to stick to walls and to send out these little blasts of energy, it doesn't mean to say that in the here and now he's in the same leagues as the delivery man. So it ends up creating this sense of peril of, okay, so what if these two characters meet? Like, what if these two characters meet up in the next episode and things kick off from there? Or the episode after that, and Crawler is still at this point where he spends some of his time running around and screaming for help and just firing out these little blaster things. How is he going to deal with someone that can move faster than he can comprehend? And it's adding this sense of fear factor to the episode, which sits itself nicely towards the end of the episode in a way that doesn't undermine what comes before it. It's a very different kind of scene. We have gone from the brighter, colourful, wackier, superhero knockabout action stuff to something a lot more creepy or insidious when we get to his character. And I think that it does work, and I do like the fact that our characters actually are having this brief moment to interact. They don't know each other, they don't know the significance of each other, but that might change in time. Though I think that by this point, the delivery man knows who Crawler is. I'm not 100% sure, but whatever. With that said, however, let us get into the negatives, and I will admit that this feels like it might be something of a nitpick, and it's going to seem like an absurd thing to say, but I think it needs to be said that Eraserhead is an odd element in all of this. Because this is an episode that's mostly focused around the original characters Vigilantes, and one way or another they all play off each other very well. Even if they aren't necessarily friends, even if they're not necessarily like each other, they each have an element that really sits well with each other. That there's a flair and an energy about them which is distinct and helps to really sell Vigilantes. They feel very much these are Vigilantes characters. These are characters that couldn't necessarily work in the main series. Then you have Eraserhead here, and he's still the Eraserhead from My Hero Academia, for better or worse. Like, he feels just so conspicuous by his inclusion in all of this, especially bearing in mind that he just... I'm not going to say he doesn't contribute much to what's going on, but it feels like this is an episode that you could easily have replaced him with a different character, and the thrust of this episode would be the same. You could have replaced him with any hero from the main series at this point in the story, and the episode itself would mostly go the same. Or replace them with a wholly new and original character that has the same rope-tying, scarf-tying ability. For what it adds and what it means to this episode itself, it doesn't really feel as though it justifies him being there, apart from, well, we're building up for him for the rest of the season, or possibly the series as a whole. It feels odd. That he just feels so strange because of just how different everything else is, that our lead character in this is not a pro hero, and they're not someone who really is capable of being it, at least what we've seen of them thus far. They're a bungler, a feckless idiot that finds themselves dropping into situations that are way above their head, and he's being flanked and supported by people that sell black market goods, that sell, well, let's be blunt, drugs to people. And this is supported further by a guy that was mutated into a cricket mantis thing. And then we have Eraserhead, who just feels like a My Hero Academia character. He just feels just so off with the rest of it. Every other character is either broken or slightly dark by what they do. And there's Eraserhead who is just Eraserhead. He doesn't feel especially different to how he is in the main series. And I know that it might feel like nitpicking, but it just feels odd. There's just scenes where he's there with those other characters, and I want to see more of those other characters, because there's nothing about what he's doing which really feels like it justifies him being there, at least in the here and now. That will change as this season goes on, maybe, but for the here and now, he just feels like an odd element into this that doesn't really justify him being there, apart from we need him here for later on. But I don't know, I think this is something I'm going to end up meditating on as we go forward. With that said and done, however, let us get into the overview and say that I did enjoy this episode. Like I say, despite Eraserhead feeling like an odd element in this, I still think that he's depicted very well. I do enjoy him being here. There is an element of, well, there's not much that you can do with him as far as peril is concerned, because we know he turns out alright in the end because he's in the main series. So it's not like, oh god, maybe Eraserhead will lose his legs or something. No, that's not going to happen. Oh, maybe he'll get a nasty thing. No, he won't. Like, there's nothing about anything here that really adds jeopardy to him. And his inclusion here still, I will admit, does have an element of, here's the extended cameo, but at least they're taking efforts to make these connections so that his inclusion in this makes him feel like a character and not an extended cameo. We'll see how it all ends up developing as we go forward, as it still feels there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air. Whilst I have read beyond this point in the manga, I don't know how this season's going to wrap up. I have an idea as to what the ending image is going to end up being, and what the ending storyline is going to end up being. But with that said, I really don't know. A lot of this is going to depend on how they tie all this together, and Eraserhead's involvement in all of this still feels like an extended series of extended cameos, more so than ends up feeling like it means something. But we'll end up seeing where that goes going forward. Like I say, good episode, great episode, fun episode, maybe feels a little bit like filler. I think they need to do more to establish Eraserhead in this series, but we'll see how we go going forward. With all that said and done, however, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. Comments from the previous video. The first one's Big X1, who says, I like this one. This, of course, referring to the previous episode, which was... I don't remember, I've not got it written down, but you know which one it was, because it was the previous episode, and it says, I liked it, I like this one, no complaints from me, thank you, and our next comment comes from, I really should have had that written down, but the problem is that I know what the episode previously should have been. It should have been Irrational, no, the previous one technically should have been Irrational Man, this week should have been Irrational Team, I think. So it's weird that we get a Rational Man and a Rational team up here, but whatever, let's not worry about that, and move on to the next comment, which comes from Scott TV Gamer, who says, I think the chapter with the detective meeting All Might may not be lore accurate. I can't remember exactly, but I believe that you were supposed to have known each other before All Might fought All for One, which would have been before this. If true, then that might be why they didn't adapt it. Thank you for your comment and the speculation on that. That might be the case, but I also, as I was right in my reply to their comment, realised that, yeah, maybe the reason why they haven't adapted it is because they want a certain thing to be the thing that ends this season. And if you were to adapt that, at least put it into this season and to put it into an episode, it would push back that ending image. And it would end up being the starting image of the next season. Of course, they could have just made this season an episode longer to compensate for that, but hey ho, let's not worry about that. They have something very specific in mind that they want to end this season on. We'll see what they do. There's a part of me though that knows it's going to happen, but there's also a part of me that thinks, does the maths of this line up? But we'll soon see about that. With all that said and done, however, thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for your time. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode in the comment section down below. Whether you loved it, whether you hated it, let me know. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!